The Honourable Nick Smith.
Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to join members of the government and other parties to support the third reading of this Taxation, International Investment and Remedial Matters Bill as part of this government's broader program of improving the international competitiveness of New Zealand. The key focus of this government's economic program, whether it's our work in tax, whether it's our work in economic development, whether it's in employment law, right across the board, is in terms of making New Zealand more competitive. And in that context, this government is very outward-looking. So often we hear speeches from opposition members who are so almost North Korean in their view of the future for New Zealand. And if we are to make the living standards that we desire for New Zealanders, we need to look externally, because we on this side of the House believe that New Zealand can compete internationally, that we can match up and make investments offshore, that we can, without sort of protectionist, inward-looking legislation, provide the sorts of incomes and jobs for fellow New Zealanders. Interestingly, the biggest gains in this bill is for New Zealand companies that are investing overseas. For instance, if you're a Fonterra and you've got substantive investments, as Fonterra does in countries like China, those companies are currently disadvantaged by those tax rules. And so it is sensible that this Parliament wants to make those international businesses more competitive internationally. And what I find ironic from the contribution from New Zealand First is that when it comes to an issue, for instance, of China wanting to invest in New Zealand, they become North Korean in their outlook. But when it's the other way round with this tax bill of wanting to invest overseas, sometimes they change their tune. And the difference and the real substance of what this government is doing in this space is that we are consistent. We are consistent in our view of international outlook and recognising the change of globalisation and wanting to make sure that we have got a consistency of tax rules that ensures that we can invest overseas and that we can have those sorts of global businesses based here in New Zealand. Mr. Speaker, I want to compliment the work of Peter Dunn. No area of law is as complex and as challenging as tax law, let alone when you're trying to work in the international environment. This is a simple but small and effective part of the incremental plan that this government has for growing in the economy. It's part of that theme of doing everything that makes the boat go faster, and getting good international tax rules around investments is part of what New Zealand needs to do to be competitive, to create jobs and to grow the wealth of New Zealand.
Call the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge Nick Smith. I'm not